Say we're on?
You're good now.
Okay. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the Building Energy Code Working Group. Second half of our session on Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. And we will go right on now to the priority recommendations document that was sent out to all members of the group. It is also posted on the website. But I don't have the exact name of the document in front of me.
Called,
2025 priority recommendations.
yes, exactly.
So it's a link on the website that says 2025 priority recommendations to be voted on. If anyone needs to pull that up. All right, so the first item on here is the authority having jurisdiction recommendation, and there are four options here. And we're going to pick one, not vote on all of them. So the question is whether the working group should recommend that DPS remain as the entity overseeing RBs and CBs and fulfilling the AHJ functions regarding rulemaking. That's A. B is, should the working group recommend that just a state entity that would be designated in the future as the AHJ be the entity that handles compliance and enforcement responsibilities for RBs and CBs upon allocation of adequate funding. That's B. C, should the working group recommend that the Division of Fire Safety be designated as the authority having jurisdiction for RBs and CBs for buildings currently under their jurisdiction? That's C. And D is, should the working group recommend that DFS be the AHJ for RBs and CBs for all buildings, that's buildings currently under their jurisdiction and single-family owner-occupied, upon allocation of adequate funding and resources. So I think what we will do is go A, B, C, D, and see how many people are in favor of each. How many people are in favor of, well, first of all, is there any discussion about this?
Just C and D are very similar in that D just might have a longer time frame.
C and D, you said?
Yeah.
C and D are very similar in that C is just public buildings that DFS has jurisdiction over. That C, D is those buildings plus single-family owner-occupied, which is the only class of buildings that DFS does not have a jurisdiction over.
Some agricultural also.
And some agricultural buildings,
Some agricultural, we do not retain jurisdiction also.
those are unheated buildings.
No, they could be heated buildings. They're just agricultural in nature or serving products that are fully developed and produced on the farm.
Okay. So, yeah.
Last year we voted, our current recommendation is C, correct? And the people that were from last year's.
I believe so.
And you have.
Yep, so last year was designate the DFS as a statewide AHJ over all building construction, public, private, commercial, residential, with an appropriation to cover necessary resources.
Oh, so it was D. It was D.
Correct.
C. Okay, I didn't know we did this in the family last.
So Craig, the additional part of that is like including the phase transition and timeline
Yep.
Right.
and if adequate funding, if you want to say that's a little different spin from last time.
And I would add that I think implicit in all of these, especially with the further conversation that we've had about all this in this working group, implicit in all of this is that this is not something that could be done overnight. All of these would be creating a timeline or a plan for getting there. So
They all say including a phase transition and timeline.
yeah. So not implicit, explicit. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, all but A.
Right, okay, well, I guess that's status quo, ante. All right, so any more discussion on this, or should we have a straw poll, A, B, C, D?
Just, it would be helpful if we do roll call, so I can keep track of everybody for these.
Okay.
So you said we're gonna ultimately vote on one. You want now to narrow this down to sort of one, and then you'll have the people that oppose it, just like last time?
Yes, I think
Is that what
so.
we're getting to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody hear that? So we're gonna, the point of this is to come up with wording for a recommendation to include in the report. And those who, if will pick the majority recommendation to include in the report, but then those who are opposed to that would have the opportunity to dissent. All right? So, and then the,
I guess, or we could do a show of hands, just leave your hands up so I can actually see who voted what, you know. Because if people voting down too quick, I won't be able to tell.
all right. Well, let's do the show of hands then, because we have four things to vote on
Right.
here. So those in favor of A, which is, I think, basically status quo. We have 1, 2, 3. Anybody else voting in favor of A, status quo? Okay. You all set, Ben?
Yep, those three, yeah.
Yeah. B is sort of a middle ground, having the working group recommend some state entity become the AHJ. And that state entity would be responsible for compliance and enforcement, and that it would be contingent on adequate funding and resources to support that goal with a phased transition and timeline. Those in favor of B?
Like EGS,
Yes.
EGS is in favor of B. All right, and C is working group recommending that DFS be designated as the AHJ for buildings currently under their jurisdiction, again, with adequate funding, resources, and a phased transition. Those in favor of C, raise your hands. Everyone in favor of C? All right. Last call. D is recommending that the DFS be the AHJ for all buildings, public and private. And again, upon allocation of adequate funding, resources, and a transition. Those in favor of D? Still have a lot of people abstaining, it appears. CPED, Jim and Ann is in favor of that. Are you okay, Ben?
we got BD, and then who else? I saw Jim Bradley,
Chris Burns,
Chris Burns, and Janda.
yeah.
Anybody else online? Okay. And then got you, yep, and Craig, yep.
And we have no one else voting there, is that right? I guess I would vote for that as a recommendation. Everyone else is abstaining, it appears. Right. An additional component to be considered that Ben added at the bottom here, should the phase transition and timeline be included in the recommendation? And if so, should that transition and timeline be spelled out? It's the real addition in this case. I think we'll leave that as in advance for now. 'Cause we could talk about that for a while.
That's why it's at the bottom, Scott.
Peter has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, so is this saying that the energy efficiency utilities will,
This is number 2 you're talking about.
pardon me?
This is item 2 you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're on, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. In do website upgrades for OPR's website? Is that what this is suggesting?
Well, this is suggesting that should the working group recommend that EEU support energy code compliance activities, and those activities could include providing some funding for the residential contractor registry, website upgrades and marketing with TEPF funds.
So they'd be paying for the
Without requiring-
federal regulation to update their website? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, yes, in effect. In effect. So the question, this is arising out of the notion that all we can do here, if we're not going to be able to add any sort of enforcement mechanisms or penalties, is increase the incentive for voluntary compliance. And the main avenue for doing that, it appears, or one of the avenues anyway, for doing that is raising the visibility and usability of the residential contractor registry, which requires a website for people to be able to access and find a contractor, find whether they're on the list. And so right now the website is not terribly usable. And they would require, the contractor registry is already sort of in deficit in terms of the fees supporting the costs.
Gotcha.
So this was a mechanism for providing funding for them to hire a consultant or whatever is necessary in order to update their website. Jennifer Coleman and I had a good conversation earlier this week about this whole topic. And she sent me a long email right before this meeting detailing some issues that she brought up during that conversation. And I think she would like to talk about it right now.
Yeah, I think it's important for this group to understand that the state of Vermont is undergoing for all of its websites a project by which we are bringing those websites into compliance with federal requirements under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And OPR is in that process right now. And we are going to be hiring the vendor that services and designs most of the state's websites to help us with that project. But as part of that project, we have to remediate hundreds, if not thousands, of documents that are available on our website to ensure that they are accessible under those ADA standards. And one of the things that I said to Representative Campbell earlier this week is, I believe that the map that's on our website is probably going to go away as the result of this remediation work for accessibility. We do have currently available in all of our professions a way to download a roster of all of the licensees or credentialed people who are practicing in that profession. So we have that already in all of our professions, and I'm hopeful and I suspect that the ability to do that will remain. One of the things that I said to Representative Campbell is it would be really challenging for OPR to support this recommendation right now. But OPR is very willing to collaborate with and share data with any other entity that has the, capabilities of putting this, residential contractor registry information on their website in whatever way, they want to do that. We're happy to share that data, but we have to ensure that, kind of our website is accessible and that, we don't have anything like the map in any of our other professions, and arguably all of our professions have consumer protection, considerations. So I understand that that was one way to incentivize contractors to register with our office. And I understand that that map, a lot of people have been unhappy with that map, that it didn't meet folks' expectations. But, you know, we did what we could with that. But I do believe that map's going to go away. And unfortunately, OPR can't support that recommendation.
So I have a couple of questions for you, Jennifer. You mentioned the ability to download the registry,
A roster.
which is what is downloadable as a spreadsheet, right?
Correct. And it has the name of every registered individual or business, their license number, their license status. So
Yeah.
that's already available on our website in all of our professions.
Right. I think the challenge is that that's a step too far for a lot of people who are not really that capable of or inclined perhaps to download a spreadsheet and sort through it.
But we're happy to support anybody else with data or collaboration who wants to try to stand something like this up. But, you know, I would hate, I can't commit to that on behalf of OPR.
Another option, though, that I think was, at least in my mind, was having, by making funding available to OPR could hire a consultant to handle this. Is that can handle standing up a website and maintaining it for a period of time, a year or two, until fees could catch up with the cost of maintaining the website. Did you understand that as an option?
I do understand that. And boy, that puts me in a tough position because I don't want to say no thank you to the idea of OPR getting some money for that type of effort. But again, we're having to standardize our website and all of the information on that site to ensure accessibility with those federal requirements. So, you know, I would not want to commit us to that because I don't know what would be possible for us to do once we have all of that remediation work done on our website. And we already have a vendor that we're working with. So,
yep. And the email that you sent me, was it today? I don't know when I got it.
It was today. Yes.
Had a great deal of detail in it about the differences between this profession and the other professions that OPR has listings for on their website, on your website, and other differences between this profession and others that makes the foundation shaky, I guess, the way of putting it.
Absolutely. And I did try to kind of bring to the group's attention in that presentation I did back in July. You know, we're having a lot of challenges with this profession. It's a new profession, so that's not unheard of. But the way the statutory language is written is unlike any other profession that we have, with the $10,000 threshold, with the carve out for quality of work that we cannot enforce, that we don't have jurisdiction over. And that is making it very hard for us to protect the public. When people file complaints with us about their contractors, they don't understand why we can't help them when their contractor has done such shoddy work that, you know, anybody looking at it, even a lay person like myself, would understand, geez, that's terrible work. This person was clearly not qualified to do the work. And yet they received a registration from our office because we require no qualifications. That's what a registration is. And we cannot enforce quality of work. So we have some real challenges with this profession. There are some things that we think we can do, hopefully this coming legislative session, to kind of tweak the statutory language in smaller ways to increase our public protection. But in terms of those bigger concepts, like, should people have to be qualified to get a credential from the state? should it be a license versus a registration? That's a huge controversial topic, but it's one that we're all going to have to, I think, have more discussion about. I hope we'll have more discussion about that. And another one is quality of work. We have a unprofessional conduct statute that basically applies to all of our professions except residential contractors. And it allows us to enforce adhering to essential standards of acceptable and prevailing practice. So if we have a professional in any one of our 52 professions who does not adhere to essential standards of acceptable and prevailing practice, we can prosecute them for that. We can discipline their license for that. Residential contractors is the only profession where we can't do that.
So Jennifer, what you said to me was very helpful. I wonder if you'd be willing to summarize that and for the entire group, something we could put on the website, because I think that would be very helpful in understanding how we can support OPR in making this registry more useful for the public and for contractors and for OPR. And maybe you don't mind me providing this email as written, or you could summarize it more in more general terms, whichever you wish.
Happy to do that.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you.
So I guess really the thrust of this question to me is supporting OPR's registry and raising the visibility and usability of the registry. And the EEU support here is funding support that would enable some of the work that needs to be done that OPR does not have the funding and resources to do now. Kelly?
I just want to make one comment so people have the context too, that the source of funding that's listed here, TPF funding, that is currently used for weatherization primarily. So because the department's perspective is that this might not be the highest best use for that source of funds, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware what that source of funds is typically used for, before you vote on using it for something else.
So, TPF funding supports, I know supports 3D thermal, it supports, I think, Steve can probably talk to it, EVT's other work in other markets as well, to be able to provide weatherization incentives. It's other things that it supports besides that.
It's thermal envelope savings and fuel reduction. So yeah, a lot of it's really
Basically
focused around weatherization, but there's some aspect of our work in RNC that is attributable to DEPF2. But yeah, that's really what it's been utilized for historically.
RNC, residential and commercial.
Yes. Residential and construction work that we've been involved with. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So that obviously funding is always an issue. Where does the money come from? And TEPF funding or funds, there's been a bright line there, keeping it in the weatherization world, both for low income and for market rate.
It's also a different source of funding too. It doesn't come from the electric bill fee too. So it's a different source of, and fluctuation as well. For the funding as a result of that.
Yes, the funding comes from RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, if anybody here is not aware of that, and what's called the forward capacity market, which the legislature has directed towards this purpose. The RGGI funds, which is an auction is the word I'm trying to think of, that provides revenue to the states that are within the regional greenhouse gas initiative region, provides revenues to the states, and those revenues have exceeded expectations in the last few years, last 3 years, I guess. And we have something like almost $10 million, I think, sitting there now that was not budgeted for in the last 3-year, what's it called, DRP,
Well, it's also.
demand resource.
Other funding sources have been, the ARPA funding has been also a big driver in weatherization spending for the last 2 years. So
Yes.
Federal money that was available.
So, but anyway, as a result, we have a little kitty of $10 million or so, a little bit less than that. That is now in the process of being, how to expend that is in discussion for the next 3-year demand resource plan. But that was the bucket that we were looking at. Another part of this that actually in conversations with Craig this week came up was not only funding support, but staff and technical support to the AHJ, whoever that is, to increase code compliance, not just above code work, but code compliance. And the model that occurred to me as we were talking about that is the state energy management plan or program. Is it plan or program? That has been in place now for a number of years, where Efficiency Vermont has in effect embedded staff people with the Buildings and General Services department in state government to help state government when building projects are being contemplated or are underway, to help them bring an energy consultant lens onto those projects. And I think it was 2022, the legislature expanded eligibility to participate in that program to municipalities around the state. And that program, I think, has been quite successful. So that model occurred to me as another way that EEUs could perhaps support energy code compliance. So I guess the vote here is whether the working group should recommend that that raising the visibility and usability of the contractor registry is a value that we want to, an angle, a pathway, an avenue that we want to support for improving code compliance. And that might include funding through the, well, I don't know, we have to specify, but it might include funding, and it might include a staff and technical support. So is that a recommendation that the group wants to make? That fair enough? Is there any more discussion on that? Any questions? Looks like you have a puzzled look on your face. All right. Voting on that, are we going to support making that recommendation? Anybody? Nobody? 3 of us, that's it? Okay, not very popular.
Discussion,
Yes.
So, I mean, could we modify this recommendation?
Sure, that's part of the discussion.
So, I mean, I think, it's pretty obvious that trying to, fund and enhance the website upgrades for the special regulation is part that doesn't really fit here, Could we just say, EU support energy code compliance activities, including marketing, kind of period, I guess. I think they're probably already doing it, but.
Well, there is currently a recommendation from the previous 2 years that say that recommend that the energy efficiency utility support energy code compliance activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had that last year. So why did only 3 of us support it this time?
Because it has using TPF, for me, it has using TPF money to enhance the web registry website, which I don't think is the highest best use for
Got
it,
it, okay,
of those funds. That's why personally,
all right,
the department's not voting for it, not personally, the department's not voting for it.
got it.
So it doesn't need to be there. Okay, done.
I'm curious why other people aren't voting for this. If you're willing to share.
Jennifer?
Well, one of the reasons I'm not voting for it is because we're redoing our website and we already
Right.
have a vendor and all of those reasons. The other thing I just wanted to point out or to let y'all know actually is that we did have a meeting yesterday with the Secretary of State's office and talked through a lot of issues and challenges with the residential contractor registry. So we have a lot of more global issues that we really need to address before we, I think, tackle and progress on energy code compliance issues. Like we have foundational things with the residential contractor registry that we need to address. And some of those I mentioned a minute ago. We do recognize though that we're going to have a sustained kind of effort to keep the word, to get the word out and to keep the word out that residential contractors who contract directly with homeowners need to be registered with our office. And we did substantial outreach around the passage of that bill, of that act, as well as the implementation. So we did radio, we did flyers everywhere, we emailed and contacted everybody who's registered a business in the state that has anything to do with construction. But we've got to do more. And so we talked about some ways that we can try to keep the word out there so that homeowners or people who are considering building know they need to be asking their contractor, are you registered? As well as for contractors who, may have missed or relocated to the state or may have missed those initial efforts about the registry to get the word out to them as well. Like, hey, you need to be registered with our office. So we are going to be kind of engaging in some of those efforts, irrespective of what this committee recommends.
Going back to last, further.
I guess I would just want to say, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. We're one of the few states that has an energy efficiency utility constituted the way it is with the relatively large staff they have and all of this experience. And we're going through this difficult process where DFS doesn't want to take this on. They don't have the staff. We all know what the issues are here. And I just think big picture, given the fact we're moving towards a net zero code, the way EVT is funded today, where they fund projects above code, it's just a great opportunity, I think, to think big picture about using our efficiency utility staffs better to support this process broadly. So I'll just want to put that on record again, because to me, this is just the minutia of whether it's website, whether it's this or that is less important to me than we need to think sort of what are we funding? What can we afford? What do we have for expertise? What do we need? How do we help people get there? And I just think using the energy efficiency utilities we need to look at this differently. And we need to open up our eyes to the opportunity we have with the staffing that we have. So
I think the crucial point that you're making here is that right now, the energy efficiency utilities are in effect funded to support above code work.
Correct.
And as the code gets stricter and we move towards a net zero code as the base level of compliance.
Right.
In the next 5 years, or even if it's longer, we're on that trajectory. As we move to that, then there will be what's available to fund above code will be less and less, and in effect evaporate over time.
Yeah, and again, I've said this before, and I've had many conversations with staff at EVT in particular about this. I understand why they don't want to be the police. They never want to be the police. They want to be the good guy to help you do your building. But I think it's time to rethink that and have this and do it in a way which helps contractors get to where we need to get to, and use the staff and the expertise that we have, given that DFS has been pounding the drum This is a huge lift for them. They don't have the people. And here we have the people that can help them right here. Big picture, again, there's a lot of things to work out, but I think that to me is a really key pathway potentially to get there that we have in front of us, we have available to us.
I think that even though this is worded much more narrowly, I think that is the thrust of the idea here. And I should also point out that last year's report got pretty, not unanimous support, but wide support for supporting OPR with the rulemaking process to establish voluntary specialty certifications. Which is part of this, and actually, I think it's actually discussed more specifically in the next thing we're going to talk about. And it also got a unanimous support, or at least there were no listed dissenters for supporting OPR for website improvements. And understanding that, as Jennifer points out, they are in the process of doing website updates to comply with ADA requirements. I don't know how that would dovetail with making general improvements that would make the website for residential contractors more user-friendly. But conversely, I can imagine that making website improvements to make it more consumer-friendly would also would dovetail with ADA requirements. So anyway, does anybody want to revisit that conversation? I saw Peter nodding your head about the. I mean, it's
Headed in a good direction.
well, should we have another go at that vote on number 2? Understanding that public service would not support using TEPF money for this, but if there is now with Craig's discussion, more support for having EEUs support OPR and whoever the AHJ is in making this transition.
Sounds like maybe this needs to be just reworded and changed for the committee to consider for next meeting.
Maybe we should do that. Why don't we do that? Ben?
From Vermont Gas's perspective, we want to support this in some capacity, but we don't feel like the contractor registry maintenance is an EEU role.
I'm sorry, you don't feel the contractor maintenance is what?
The role of an EEU, but rather a state agency.
Okay.
So just to clarify, we're talking about if we were to revote next time, it would be energy efficiency utility support for energy code compliance activities. And then basically cutting out the underlined section of this question.
Well, I think it's
Would be also market, maybe
I mean,
adding.
I think it's, to me, my wording of this, I don't know if there's another take of it on this later, but I don't see it. My view of this is really raising the visibility of the residential contractor registry and looking for mechanisms to do that. Using that as the pathway for incentivizing contractors to comply voluntarily with codes generally, but with the energy code. So raising the visibility and usability of the contractor registry to include updating the website, finding a way to update the website, whether it is through a consultant, a contractor with OPR, or finding some other entity to basically take over that responsibility. And also creating a marketing campaign that is really aimed at increasing consumer awareness of the registry and energy codes.
Are you putting that all under the EU doing that or?
No, I was.
Sounds like it should be
I
two
was-
separate-
I was-
Yeah,
I was-
Separate points for consideration of us to consider here as
Yes.
a committee is, this is one point, contractor registry, do better, fix.
Yeah,
The EU's involvement in code support and code level support, not above code support,
yeah,
funding considerations in regard to that. Is that kind of
yes.
I guess I missed-
capturing how these two things are?
well, I'm confused of how that differs from the existing, that we have a recommendation that EEU support energy code compliance activities. So I'm trying to get at, what's the nuance?
I'm just saying that
Craig
that's
was
embedded
talking
right
about-
now into what I'm hearing Scott say is he wants to make sure that the contractor registry and enhanced access to and utilizing the contractor registry as a tool for gaining more awareness of the codes. That's an issue I'm hearing you say is important, but then that, for the reasons like the EEUs being involved in that doesn't seem to be a part of that mission necessarily.
Right, I'm trying to get at what are we saying about the EUs? Because it started with Craig saying he thinks that the EU should provide more technical support, right? So, which is a little different than what our current recommendation is. So I'm just trying to tease out, and we can work with you, Scott, and
Yeah,
maybe Craig on like the actual wording, because we're way out under, we don't have enough time probably, but I just want to make sure we're clear and differentiating because so we're not going to repeat previous recommendations.
Yeah.
What's the new component of it is what I'm trying to get at. So we'll work with you guys to capture that to be voted on.
so the recommendation in last year's report was establish a role for EUs to play in supporting energy code compliance. I think we're trying to refine that a little bit.
That's fine.
Yeah, and one of the avenues, one of the pathways, I think Steve teased it out well. One of the pathways is raising the visibility of the residential contractor registry, which is supporting OPR's website and also supporting marketing for that. And then there's also technical support and staff support that could be offered as well through the EUs. So,
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that language from last year might be good enough for me at this point, because really what I'm saying, the benefit I see is sort of, once we figure out, we're gonna get to a process that allows for more comprehensive enforcement and a support system. I'm just saying, I think the EEU staff can play a role there. And I don't know that we're ready for that. We haven't cracked the nut of like where it's even gonna be. So.
it's a hard nut to crack. All right, item 3 here is voluntary contractor certification recommendation. And there's 2 points, A and B. Should the working group recommend that identifying, vetting, and approving the list of trade specialties and their associated credentialing bodies for voluntary contractor certifications be moved from OPR to DFS? That's one, or that's A, and then B is should in effect that role, that task be should the working group recommend that role be undertaken by a task force, a formal task force that would identify, vet, and approve a list of trade specialties and credentialing bodies for voluntary contractor certifications. So any thoughts on that? Any further conversation? Oh, I see Jennifer's got her hand up.
Nina, I'm sorry for being so, not my usual to be so participatory, but I am very concerned about the idea of voluntary contractor certifications being moved to DFS, because here we are trying to establish and promote a contractor registry in general. and the way the statutes are structured right now, if you want a specialty certification, which we haven't designed and implemented yet, but the statutory structure right now is that if you want a specialty certification that's offered through OPR, first you have to be on the registry. So I'm concerned about confusion in the marketplace about where contractors need to go for registration. And if they want a specialty certification, if that's someplace different, that's concerning. And
So,
then,
Jennifer, if I could just
sure,
address that one point. I think the point of this was not necessarily that the certification would be issued by DFS, but there's a process of determining what certifications should be offered and who the appropriate credentialing entity would be for that certification. And then recommending that certification and that credential to OPR in effect, which would still be the office where
it was offered through.
builder registry is housed. So
Yes.
it's not that the certification
Moves. Okay.
is moved, it's just that
That's very helpful. Thank you. And one of the things that you'll note in the email that I sent you and that will be included on this one pager that I create for the website is just that if you think about a regulatory program, a base regulatory program offering a credential to a profession like residential contractors as a foundation, and you think about something that you're building on top of that as just kind of a structure that relies upon that foundation. OPR's position is that offering specialty certifications at this point is premature because we have foundational problems really resulting from flawed statutory language that make this regulatory program ineffective to protect the public. So we want to address the.
it would be very useful to have a summary of those issues.
And they will be on this one pager. It's in the email that I sent you, but absolutely, I will include those. We have specific examples and there are statutory improvements that we're going to be seeking this year, but it's just, you don't build on a foundation that is insufficient. So thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you have your hand up or did you take it down on purpose?
No, I'll just add that one of the big impetuses behind the contractor registry was to give an intrinsic value and an attraction to builders to become better certified, because it would, the market would demand, require that, hey, if you look like, if you've got this credential, we're going towards you. And I've benefited from that for 20 plus years with Efficiency Vermont, because they allow you to do the same thing. And that encourages others to say, okay, well, how do I get that? And they'll go out to a nationally accredited, organization. They'll get that certification. They can put that on the website. It makes them a better, tradesperson in the field, and it helps them garner business. So I think that is what was part of the contractor registry. So I don't think separating it would be a good idea. I think that wherever it resides, wherever that contractor registry resides, it's a one-stop shop. You go there for your registration. The public can look you up. They can also see the certification that you have. And I know there's a big effort for several organizations trying to develop their own certifications for the state of Vermont. But I still think it's an easy first step, when everything is up and running, to just recognize the nationally, ones that are offered in every state or recognized in every other state. We should be able to do that here, no matter what discipline it might be.
Sorry. Just to be clear, again, this is not a matter of changing who is providing the certifications. It's who is vetting those certifications and the credentialing bodies. OPR would still be, since it's doing the registry, it would still be in charge of approving those certifications and those credentialing bodies.
Agreed.
But going through the legwork necessary to get to the point of having a certification and a credentialing body ready for considering to be approved, that is what we're looking for a way to help OPR with. So should it be DFS that does that? Because DFS is already working with trade specialists of all different trades, or B under this is should a formal task force be created to handle that process? So
Maybe my outlook is a little too pedestrian and I don't get it, but I'm thinking if there's throughout the nation, if there's things already recognized that exist from BPI to, Passive House to whatever, and it's not just the energy side, but also concrete constructors and everything else, that should be an easy approval instead of having to get a huge task force together with a lot more meetings if it's already being done and successfully in other states.
right. Okay.
Thank
Point
you.
taken. Any other thoughts on this, or are we going to have a quick vote? We have two more things after this to consider.
I really think there should be a C with the information that we got from OPR with allow their evaluation of their current program to move forward and recognize and identify what they're evaluating currently to better improve that process before
Yeah.
there is an additional building block or
Well, this is
dislike the voluntary word, no matter what. But
well, that's all we got. All we got is voluntary.
I got it.
But, and I guess I would say, I think that what the points that Jennifer made in her email to me and that she will summarize for public posting are a lot of good points and very important for making OPR's builder registry on a much more solid foundation. That is another thing that we have to consider. And unfortunately, we're sort of in the 11th hour now trying to do that. But I don't think I think that the working group can still make this recommendation to support OPR in doing these voluntary certifications. And that whole process of improving the registry is sort of separate from this particular recommendation. So there's, I think, 2 points here, A and B. One is have DFS fill that role of vetting certifications and credentialing bodies, or B, create a formal task force to do that work. So we may not support either one, but
I can support B.
you can support B. Okay. Well, who's in favor of A? We have just a few more minutes here, so let's try to get through the last 2 items after this. Who can support A here? Having DFS do this work. Anybody? Who can support B, having a task force created to do this? Peter? Hand up.
Jim's got his hand up.
Again, would be in favor of task force. Seth, Tom, Greg, me,
Yep.
and Peter,
Jim is on the
and Jim.
check it out.
All right.
Sorry, I got Scott, VHCB, Peter, ERA, Southern.
Tom and Seth. All right, number
B.
4, ventilation specialist. I'm going to reword this one to be not a ventilation specialist. It's a trade recommendation, but the last line on this, third-party attestation of testing and balancing, could be added to the CB's compliance certificate. I'm going to suggest that is a better recommendation than adding ventilation specialist as a licensed trade.
Scratch that other than the last line.
Yes,
You're talking about going forward or?
yes, yes. And the point of that is that the 2024 Arby's requires whole house ventilation, 2020 does not. But where whole house ventilation is installed, should it be commissioned? Should there be some paperwork that indicates that it's been commissioned, that somebody has said, yes, this works as manufacturer recommends.
In your wording of this, are you distinct in third party, or would you feel it appropriate that the trade professional installing the equipment be able to verify?
As part of their normal process of installation.
What's that?
As part of the normal process of
Yes.
installation and commissioning of their own equipment.
Yes, I'm not sure where a third party came from, actually.
Well, it aligns with the rest of that recommendation above.
Maybe that's it.
But
Yeah.
We also, comment.
I'm willing to let go of third party myself. Matthew,
Oh, thank you. As a manufacturer of energy recovery ventilators, I think that, the industry would be generally supportive of requiring that ventilation systems get tested and balanced, tested for required airflow and balanced for equal airflows. Down in the weeds a little bit, one thing that's starting to emerge in the industry and in the IRC is the ability to use is onboard diagnostic equipment in the devices themselves, in the ERVs or HRVs themselves, that will measure and display the airflow in each airstream. And the IRC allows that as an alternative to testing. And I think that that's a good thing. So just might want to keep that in mind. When that's allowed, then there's a potential, there's a cost reduction and a simplicity in terms of installation. Only other comment would be that I note that over in DFS, there's licensing of heating contractors, both air side and water side. And to me, that's a good place for ventilation capability or ventilation specialty licensing to be just rolled into the HVAC stuff, HVAC licenses. Thank you.
I couldn't hear that well.
I'm sorry.
So what was the last thing you said about some agency has some jurisdiction?
Specialty trades already being overseen by DFS, and if there was a ventilation specialty.
Well, there's DHS or DFS has an HVAC list, but there's no specialty license for that.
Let him speak again.
Yeah, my thought was that it doesn't need to be a specialty.
Yes.
That it could become just part of the heating licensing.
I see.
Yes, you'd need training material, but
Right. Yeah, no, I think at least I was trying to speed this up by saying we're not going to even talk about the ventilation specialist. We're just going to talk about whether testing and balancing or commissioning a whole house ventilation system should be part of the RBs and CBs compliance certificate. And it was news to me what you said earlier, Matthew, about systems coming with a not self-balancing, but airflow reporting sensors already as part of their systems.
yeah, they're here now, and more of the industry will provide those solutions.
So maybe there's a way of accounting for that too.
Mhm.
If the system has that as a installed feature, then maybe it's not necessary to include a testing regime.
And that language is already in the IRC 2021 and 2024.
I'm seeing a skeptical nod from Steve, but actually, Kelly, you have a thought?
Yeah, I would be supportive of seeing this in a way that the working group is recommending that either PSD or in the next energy code update process, this be considered. So we can fully vet the idea and talk with the building community instead of trying to make decisions that might have repercussions we're not thinking through right now.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I think there's a way to word it that just accounts for the fact that this is important and it needs to be verified in some manner, shape or form and keep the V in HVAC. We don't need another.
Because we get a lot of discussion about who should verify how, what gets
Yeah.
certified. So I think that that should happen in the code update process when everyone can have input.
Got that, Ben?
The code update process for, which we're talking about.
Civic. Or
Testing, and whether testing, how testing and balancing is incorporated into this process and whether it's part of the certificate or how it's handled will be part of the next update process. All right.
I just have a quick question, maybe for Lander. On the HVAC certification requirements they have to meet, is there generally, like for plumbers, people installing all kinds of mechanicals, anything in there about operating, like they need to certify that it operates after they install it as general rule?
So yeah, each one of those is a different code, and each one of those is isolated to a different code book. And each one of those certifications, not licenses and licenses, would reference the person that manufacturer's instructions. The end answer is yes, I have a code that says somebody has to, if you're installing something, it has to be installed in accordance to the manufacturer's instructions, and it has to work as it was listed and designed.
Yep.
But each code is gonna have a little bit different variation of that same statement.
Got it, yeah. So I think that's really what we're after here and ventilation is really important to the energy people just because of the way it can be done wrong and not balanced and put in sort of half-ass. So I think that's why we have it here, but I think handling it from a regulatory way, like you handle any other mechanical,
Yeah,
work, right?
there's a problem with that. There's really no certification
Right.
that says this is what you have to be educated in to be able to do this, that Landon can quantify, or the Division of Fire Safety can quantify. Right now, I'll just real quick, Brad. Our HVAC certification that we currently have is based off of rooftop gas-fired appliances and a Type S electrical license for the installation of those components, such as a heat pump technology that would require the electrical component. Everything that is outside of that with the air movement is how much air, is it going in the right direction?
Right.
We don't quantify that, and we don't have a certification that does currently. So those things would be outside of that scope.
It's always between like the manufacturer and the installer with the expectation that the
Yeah,
installer.
that's the point. We would need
A lot of
language to say that.
manufacturers have commissioning guidelines.
Right.
Process and even worksheets
Right.
with the equipment
That's right.
for verification to whether or not it's actually.
Whether or not it's done, right?
Sorry. Anyway, I think we think this is, who wants to add this as a recommendation for a next code update to flesh this out and add ventilation testing and balancing or commissioning to be part of that process. Okay.
Considered.
Yep. Is everybody in favor of that?
Here.
And the last item on this list, because the items below this, these numbered sections we already talked about earlier in the meeting, is continuing education units requirement or recommendation of it. So again, the last line here, or last sentence on this section in parentheses is what really gets at what really gets at what potentially this could be. So currently, trades under DFS and professions under OPR are required to get what is it called? An energy module, I think it's called. part of their continuing education. What is the continuing education, or is it just one time? Might be just one time.
It's at the time of renewal.
A time of renewal, okay. So at time of initial licensing and renewal, there's an energy module component of that, which consists currently of, because I did look at it, really just a statute, information about the statute. And it's not really applicable to the work that the individual trade does. And of course, the statute review is not very helpful to most people. So I think the thrust of this recommendation really should be to recommend that instead of a statute review, that the energy module be more applicable to the work that each trade or profession is engaged in. So, for example, if an electrician is installing a fan, a downdraft fan for a stove, and that fan draws 400 CFM per minute on high, being aware that could have an impact on a fireplace, whether a fireplace drafts or whether a hot water heater drafts, gas hot water heater drafts. That awareness is what I think is important for an electrician to know, or for a gas hot water heater installer to know. So that's the level of education that I was trying to conceive of when I was thinking about this recommendation.
Jennifer has her hand up, sorry.
Jennifer.
Yet again, OPR supports this recommendation. However, it's important for the working group members to understand that residential contractors, because it's a registration and there are no qualifications required, there is no CE requirement for that profession.
Right.
So if it was a licensed profession, we could require them to have CEs, but because it's not, basically we would require this or modify the requirement to be professions like architects, engineers, real estate brokers, etc. So, and that would also, we would want to be sure and say that was part of kind of the CEU's hours that they're already required to get. It wouldn't be in addition to the
Right.
CEs that they're required to get. So just wanted to make that note.
Okay, that's good. I don't think that conflicts with anything in this recommendation. It could extend to requirements for certifications, though, but that's sort of another level.
So I believe, I haven't read the statute for the driver of the NEG goals requirement a little bit, but I do believe that requires, or it has requirements for both DFS and OPR.
Yes.
In that mandate.
Yes.
I also, on one side of things, we've heard OPR state, utilizing these hours as part of their CEUs. We already at the Division of Fire Safety have a very limited amount of time that we get to mandate specific hours of training within a very specific field for those individuals. My concern would be taking away from some of those very important items that we need them to have their code updates on and their refresher training on, and it being replaced with something like this. I'm going to say the vast majority of our CEUs are based off of very significant life safety items. And I would.
Which this is too, in fact.
I do not disagree. There's an acute life safety effect to some things, and there's a less acute life safety effect to some things.
Well, if you're backdrafting a combustion appliance, that can be acute as well.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
We've had that well before the energy code, though.
Yeah, right. Well, right. And I, from my perusal of this, accessory session law, not statute, Act 178, sections 33 to 37, it refers to, I think, up to 2 hours or something like that of energy module training. And currently, the energy module is a 15-minute, again, perusal of statute and display of a list of resources. So it's I think the recommendation is to make it more useful to contractors, to licensees and professions.
I don't have an issue with that, with replacing what's there, but I want to point out it's a little different than I think the way you explained it. What I heard you saying is something very specific to each profession and would require a lot of different modules. I think having like a more broad overview of energy codes or something would be more applicable than energy policy, which I think is what it says now. But I would be concerned about the time and effort to do a bunch of different modules that then OPR and DFS have to make sure the right module gets to the right place versus one more helpful module than energy policy, which I agree has questionable.
Okay, well, let's try to make it better and we'll figure out how much better.
Well,
All right.
the specifics on the recommendation comes matter.
All right. And with that, I think we're at the end of this conversation. Do we still have any members of the public out there who would want to say anything? There was one other thing that occurred to me in the course of this conversation, and that was that we last year, 2024, in the bill that set up this 2-year working group, changed the requirement for updates to the RBs and CBs from every 3 years following the IECC update cycle. From those, the RBs and CBs shall be updated on that cycle to they may be updated on that cycle, which leaves it very much up to public service to decide when to do those updates. And I'm wondering whether we would be a recommendation of this group to ask the legislature to change that back to a required update cycle, perhaps every 6 years or something like that. Something other than just leaving it completely open. So I'm going to propose that as something that occurred to me in the course of today's meeting, and whether there's any support for that idea. Anybody support that idea? Yes. Tom would support that.
Where did that change come from again?
It was part of the whole conversation that led to last year's bill, 2024 bill.
It's because it was every 3 years, so we were forced to adhere to a very stringent timeline. We couldn't have the lead time to, like, it was like, no, we gotta get, every 3 years, we gotta adopt a new code.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know that I would be for going back to a certain period, because if you still have energy policy apply, then that's gonna lead an update anyway. So I think that's adequate, and I don't wanna find ourselves in the same situation of, like, Landon was just talking to me about IECC 24, and we may not want to adopt 20. Like, I just think you put yourself back in a box that you might not want to be in.
Yeah, well, so is there another way of getting at this? I mean, I haven't really thought this out, but is there another way of getting at this? Taking out of the completely optional, we don't really care if you update energy code or not.
Well, like I said, I think, if you leave an energy policy component to the energy codes, it's going to be adopted on a sufficient basis to keep progressing on energy efficiency. If you take it out, you say, we don't want this RBs and CBs to have an energy policy component to looking on it, then I would agree that you would want it more set update.
And it goes back to
Does
the
that make
initial
sense?
conversation of the day today, of like the energy policy stuff is a major reason why we have the major modifications we do.
Exactly.
It's the real reason we have the modifications we do. And the changes to the IECC or the IRC when those 3-year cycles occur are gradual and incremental changes. And we've had to make some substantial changes over the update cycle because we have those targets we're aiming for and we're needing to comply with. So if that's a factor in that update cycle of like, what are you changing for? And how severely do those changes need to be implemented with each cycle to keep on that trajectory?
So
It's like
the
that
current
conversation about
energy
the
policy
points
is
on-
still, energy, net zero ready by 2030. That's the current energy policy that is moving this along. So, again, I think if you keep the energy component, look, you don't need to say a certain date.
Well, but we were talking the other day about when the next update might happen, and what I understood you to say is it might not happen until 2030, which would be a pretty big jump.
Also,
Also,
in the energy policy.
well, no, I'm talking about RBs and CBs might not get updated again until
Well-
we're on the threshold of that 2030.
Remember, we still have 2024 out there too. And so, and again, like, that's the energy policy that 2024 was an increment. And
Yeah.
then leading up to an increment in 2030. So I think it could depend on, do you skip over 2024 and make a massive, or does 2024 come back in at some point as an interim?
There'll be a
Like,
2027 document.
2027.
It will be,
I'm talking about 2024 RPs.
yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer to this, but this occurred to me as a possible hole in our
I mean, one thing you could
Description here.
consider, I guess, on that vein is there is language that we have to certify with the US Department of Energy and CBs. And on RBs, it says, we will review the latest IECC when it comes out. And then we're supposed to say, if we're not gonna update, like, why? So that maybe is an in-between of like a report back to the legislature of like, we've reviewed the IECC 24, 27, whatever. We've decided not to do a new adoption because, so you
And
can
is
do
that a-
that kind of check back.
Is that a statute requirement or is that DOE requirement?
This is a DOE requirement, but I'm saying if you wanted it in
Yeah.
between,
Yeah, okay.
maybe something like that, like a check back or something, if you didn't want it just left out in the ethos that who knows if anyone's ever gonna do an update.
So would there be support in this group to do that? Would BSD support that?
No, and I'm gonna take that back and find out. I'm
Is there
just spitballing here.
is there support for something like that in the group? So I guess I'm gonna propose that as something that I would support.
I know the department doesn't want specific dates, like
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
boxed us
Yeah.
in too much, so
Yeah.
I can say that for
But-
sure,
but-
but I'd
but
have to
have-
go back and see if like something more flexible,
Yeah.
like that would be agreeable.
I would be hesitant on getting more specific and getting closer to something that mandates a date, only because I've seen some of the things that can happen
Yeah.
that push that off. But I will also just say that things happen naturally that want to help or want you to update your codes and standards, technology,
Yeah.
science. Those things are natural pushers to help push that code adoption process along. Nobody wants to not be able to accept the newest and latest and greatest thing when it's available.
Kelly, would you be open to like Scott's original, like, I'm thinking if I hear what you're saying. And it's gonna be driven by the policy goals that are in there, right? Would you be open to if Scott came up with language that was twice what the 3-year cycle, so 6 years?
Well,
If there was like not to exceed 6 years, the policy will be driven by this thing.
You'd have to look at where we're at right now with the current RBs or 2024 RBs, wherever we want to look at it, to see if where we're at right now is still putting us on target to hit those policy required goals by 2030. Because if not, and that's.
Well, we're
still held to
probably
account,
not gonna
we
meet-
have to.
We probably won't meet, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking just like on the process going forward. Like, does that just philosophically work?
I mean, I'd have to think about it. Again, I think it matters too how the pieces, like, are we only adopting ICC or are we, you know, like,
Right,
the pieces of the puzzle kind of all work together. So I'd have to see
Yeah.
what the whole proposal is. It's a package, or I think I could make
I
that.
think what you said, that you're already required by DOE to review the IECC
Mhm.
updates as they come out on their update cycle. And provide some explanation to DOE
Yeah,
about what,
so we're
why.
already doing that. I would.
So just share that with the legislature would be.
That would be-
Did we vote on question 5 or did we table that?
which was tasted.
I stopped talking about the CEU recommendation.
Oh,
There was never an official vote on that one.
Didn't we have some hands raised on that?
I recorded OPR as a yes and nobody else said anything.
Yeah, I think this was, the thrust of this is just to make the energy module more relevant to the work that the trades or the professions are engaged in. And so how do we do that? I don't know exactly. I'm not, this isn't a proposal to do on how to do that exactly, but just to make it more relevant. So is anybody opposed to that? Is everybody in favor of that? We should say that. Okay, okay. Okay, is that good?
That sounds like that one. Yep. So,
Okay.
yeah,
And then the last thing that we added to the list at the last minute here is,
the may to shall language, going back to that.
well, going back to that and asking the department to share its analysis of IECC updates as they come out on their update cycle, as to whether they
This is Matthew.
in the IECC
Yeah.
warrant a further update.
Hey, how are you? Good.
All right,
Okay.
all right.
I
So
will-
next,
I will just flag, we didn't have as far as it stands now, we only advanced 2 recommendations today. The AHJ question, there was not that question, none of those received the most votes was 7, with a few abstentions, so I wanted to just call that back again, if folks abstained on purpose, or if they wanted to, because as of now, we don't have that as an official recommendation.
we don't have anything on the AHJ? What you're saying? I thought we did.
Well, there's 15.
Oh, wow.
15 members, there's 7 yeses on the D, question 1D, with 3 abstentions. So,
Now you don't. Sis.
well, I figured,
Well, we got a meeting ahead of us for the 6th then.
So maybe we'll have to put some of these in as tentative, and have a formal vote on them on November 6th, which is only 2 weeks away. It's not very far away. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Ben.
probably, if folks would like,
Okay, all right.
I can circulate the tabulations to everybody in terms of voting, just so they can review them.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Sorry we dragged on a little bit longer. It's 10 minutes.
Thank you.